Welcome to Refiner's Fire. We are here to talk about all things faith and work. My name's Peter Blute. I am the Executive Director of Young Catholic Professionals. So glad to have you guys here with us, and especially glad to have our special guest today, Rebecca Salamone. Rebecca has a long history of involvement with YCP, first as a member, and then as a chapter leader, and now as a board member with the YCP Boston chapter. So she's here at our Dallas headquarters in Las Colinas, and we are here in the Beatitudes studio. So if anyone listens to the Beatitudes, you probably recognize the space that we're in. Their studio is just down the hall from us here with a bunch of other amazing Catholic organizations. So it's truly a faith and work environment here. And so we're borrowing their studio. If you haven't heard of the Beatitudes, go check them out. They have an unbelievably funny podcast, holiness, humor, handsomeness. I made that up, but it's, the 3 H's of the Beatitudes. Jeff Scheffelbein, Paul Kolker, and Nick Besner. So thanks to them for letting us use the studio. But Rebecca, so good to have you here with us.
Yeah, thank you for having me, Peter.
Yeah. Well, we're going to talk about a number of things. We're going to talk about your experience hearing about YCP and how that's impacted you. Then serving and leading in the chapter. And we'll get into some other things about evangelizing at work and lots more. But maybe you could start by just telling us a little bit about your background, a little about your career journey, and how you found YCP.
Absolutely. So I'm 29. As Peter said, I live in Boston. I've been heavily involved with YCP Boston for almost 5 years now. But before I found YCP Boston, I had just finished grad school. It was the year 2020, so there was a lot of turbulence in the world and a lot of uncertainty in terms of what was next. And I felt like a lot of my community from undergrad had moved away, and then my friends from graduate school had also taken the next step forward in their life. So I was at a point where I was starting in a new job, in a consulting career, was working a lot of hours, and felt like I didn't really have community or friends, and had kind of fallen away from my faith and from the church, and gotten to a point where I just needed to have really good solid roots. I was looking for good Catholic friendships. So I started going to Mass more regularly. And in that time, I had met one of my now best friends, Monet Souza. So for any of you listen to her work on A Message of Hope, she's awesome. I'm giving her a shout out. And she so kindly invited me to a rosary group at the time. We had about 60 young adults that would get together every Tuesday night for rosary, fellowship, and then dinner together. So it was through that experience that I started to develop real Catholic friends and really wanted to take a step deeper with faith and work. And that's when I started learning about YCP and received an invitation to join their leadership team. And the rest is history from there.
That's so awesome.
Yeah.
What was it that you think initially drew you to come to YCP?
That's a great question. So I was at a time in my life where I was just starting to work professionally for the first time. And I just saw a lot of things going on in secular work environments that made me really felt uncomfortable. And I wanted to find a way where I could better incorporate the two into my life. So I felt like I was Catholic in one place and not Catholic in the other, and I didn't want that. And I found YCP, which was an amazing community of young adults that also wanted the same things. They wanted to grow professionally. They were ambitious and excited about the next chapter of their lives and also prioritizing their faith. So it was just a win-win that I couldn't say no to.
Yeah. That's awesome. What do you think really, what do you think YCP is able to uniquely do to serve young adults today in their 20s and 30s?
So I think YCP is uniquely positioned in the sense that they do a really good job of, I think, one, cultivating community of like-minded young adults is really important. 2, normalizing faith and work and providing gentle ways to really incorporate the two in a way that is still charitable and accessible to those that don't share your faith, but also provides a warm and open invitation for those who are curious or are afraid to live out their faith at work. And then I think the third thing that was one of my favorite things about YCP actually is the national community. So every year when I come for the national conference, I'm just always so energized and excited by the amount of young adults around the country. So to see 800 young adults attending Mass, praying rosary, it's just praise God. It's so good.
How many conferences have you been to now?
I've been to, I think 3.
Okay.
So I'm short on a year so
That's
far,
great.
but yeah, I love it every single year. So I think that for me has also been something I never expected to get out of YCP. And now I have friends all over the country that are also sharing in this vision and this mission.
Yeah, so beautiful.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe you could share just a little bit about your career background too. What are you working in now? What does that trajectory looked like?
So professionally, I've worked mostly in the biotech and life science space. I started my career in life science consulting, and I did that for a few years and really felt a call to be a little more entrepreneurial. My dad is definitely the entrepreneurial type, always had his own businesses, and I think I got a little bit of that itch. So a couple of years ago, I really started praying on that, and then ended up getting laid off from my consulting job, which was honestly a blessing in disguise in so many ways. And the next morning, the CEO of my current company called me, and I forgot I had applied for the job, frankly, but it was with a really small startup out of Harvard. So that's what I've been doing the last 2.5 years. We're a biomaterials engineering company. There's 9 of us at the company right now. So I get to wear a lot of different hats and really use a lot of the leadership experience that I gained through YCP chapter leadership in my day-to-day job, which was also an unexpected gift through working in chapter leadership. But yeah, so professionally, I run all of our business development efforts, work with our doctors to train them, and then also work with our investors and our team to bring products to market.
Yeah, well, I can imagine that takes a lot of time, right? I mean, you're very busy with your work. So obviously at YCP, we talk about integrating our faith and our work, and how do we weave those two things together so that we can almost turn our work into a prayer, right?
Yeah.
That's really the goal. But what does that look like for you, like a typical workday, let's say? Where do you weave in your faith throughout your day?
So for me, I think it looks like a few different ways. Sometimes it can just be as simple as in conversation, like just referring to things like, oh, wow, this experience was such a gift, or like, I can't believe we got blessed with this opportunity. And making it part of my normal vernacular with all my colleagues is something that I like really try to strive for.
Yeah.
And in normalizing faith in the workplace, something else I've really tried to do is build it into my calendar. So if there's a day where I'm going to daily mass, I put it in my calendar and I'm like, oh, at 8 a.m. I'm at daily mass, or at noon I'm at daily mass. And that's where I am. So folks know where I am. And it's out there in the open. So I think for me, that's kind of what it looks like. And then trying to build in, time for prayer, either before I start the day or after I start the day, or if I'm having a tough moment, just asking for a little bit of peace and serenity and things like that from the Lord. And
yeah, that's great. Those little ways that we can be a little more overt about our faith and sort of open the door where maybe people encounter your calendar when they're looking to set up a meeting with you, and they're like, oh, mass, like, I didn't know she was Catholic. Yeah. Maybe they're Catholic too, and then you make a new friend, or maybe it just plants a seed, right?
Yeah.
Just starting somewhere, opening that door. So I love those examples. I always go back to this story of told by one of the Sisters of Life at our conference, and she was an attorney before she had her call to her religious vocation, and she talked about it's like 4 or 5 p.m. on a Friday afternoon, and she was about to get up and leave the office, and one of the partners comes in and slams down a whole stack of papers and like, I need this brief by Monday, and she knew her whole weekend had just been wiped clear to finish this project. But I love what she said here. I always remember this, because she stopped and she said, oh, Jesus, what are we going to do about this?
I love that. That's beautiful.
And I think about that really often. Jesus, what are we going to do about this? Like, as if I'm working here at my computer and he's right here next to me.
Yeah.
I also like to think of St. Joseph, our patron,
yeah,
here with us as well. And I just love that image.
Yeah, that's beautiful. And I think so often we forget to invite the Lord into our lives, and he's right there, but sometimes he just needs an invitation. And when you offer
wants that invitation.
Exactly. Yeah.
He'll wait for that invitation. He doesn't force himself.
Yeah, exactly.
Us, right? So
it's just such a beautiful moment. So I love that. Thank you for sharing that, Peter.
Yeah. It's something I refer back to really often. But let's shift just a little bit, because I do want to talk about your experience serving in the YCP Boston chapter.
Yeah.
So you helped start the chapter serving in various roles. Tell us a little bit about, I mean, you mentioned you were invited to join the leadership, but you were already a member participating at that point. So what did that look like when you're a member, you were coming to events, and then you were like, okay, maybe I want to explore this opportunity to actually volunteer and help build the chapter. What did that look like for you?
Yeah, so for us, at the time, we were just getting Boston started. So it was kind of a newer idea. I was learning more about the organization. And then just through a variety of instances, got put in touch with Tyler Piazza, who was starting our chapter. He said to me, I need a vice president. Are you interested? So I said, yeah, like that sounds great. So we kind of kicked it off together and tag teamed it at that point.
That's great.
But
what do you think it was about that, though, that, you know, he said, I want you to be my vice president. Like, what were you thinking when he asked you that? And, like, what kind of drew you to that?
So I think it was one of those moments that was just perfect timing. I was really yearning to be involved. He had one spot left on the team, and it was that role, which can be a lot of responsibility and influence on the team. And him and I were working in the same industry, so we felt kind of connected in that sense. We actually worked at the same company, but didn't know it because it was COVID and we were all working from home.
Yeah.
So I think it was just the perfect time for that invitation. It just felt so right to say yes to that call.
That's beautiful. Yeah, and for those that may not know, maybe you're going to YCP, but you don't know this, chapters are entirely run by volunteers. Entirely by volunteers. So we have staff here at our headquarters and across the United States that support our 43 cities now across the country, and almost 700, actually more than 700 volunteers that put on more than 500 events every year across our chapter network. So there's lots of opportunity to serve, right? And that's what you're talking about now, is serving in a leadership role. So maybe you could share a little bit, like, what does a leader do? Like, what was it that you were learning? What were you doing in that role when you were helping launch the Boston chapter?
Yeah. So I will say being on chapter leadership was such a gift, and I learned more than I ever thought I would, frankly, running a YCP chapter. And I say that with so much like respect and reverence for that time, because it also helped me really excel professionally. So that was one of the first instances where I think I had really been in a leadership position where you have 10 or 12 people on a team with different gifts and talents and skills and experience. And now you're trying to glue them all together and figure out, like, how do we fly this rocket ship, you know? So being able to, I think, be really perceptive and learn about the individual unique gifts and talents of everyone and play to strengths rather than weaknesses was a really important learning for myself in terms of, like, how do you manage and lead a team? And that's something I take into my professional life now when I have colleagues that are excellent at this specific domain area, but maybe like something else is not their forte. So how do you appeal to the strengths rather than the weaknesses? So that was a really big learning. And then I think the other thing was learning how to deal with disagreement in certain instances, which is just a natural part of running any sort of organization or business, and like reconciling and going through those hard times and then coming out stronger on the other end. I mean, we were putting on events in a time where there was still a lot of restrictions and a lot of changes and things like that. So I think that challenged me in a unique way as well. But the most unexpected thing too was the friendships I got out of leadership. I kind of thought this would be something I would do, but not something that would really impact my life. And now I look back and I'm like, wow, some of my closest friends I met either directly through YCP or tangentially through YCP. And that was just the biggest unexpected gift.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's really where it all starts, is connections, relationships, usually starting with friendships, right? And everything flows from that. All the fruit of the stories that we hear of people coming to YCP is so often because of people they meet, that they feel connected, that they feel grounded, you know, in a community now. So it doesn't surprise me that you experienced that, but that's so beautiful. So what did that look like then? You were serving in the chapter, you were helping put on the events and do the marketing and lead the team, and you were developing these skills that you were taking back in your professional life. So what was the opportunity then where you went from being a leader to then joining the board of directors for the Boston chapter?
Yeah, so the roles and responsibilities between leadership and board members are a little bit different. So as a chapter leader, you're really hands-on. You're bringing all the stuff to events. You're planning your marketing and posts. You're doing email outreach. You're securing venues, et cetera. You're facilitating a member experience. which is absolutely amazing and wonderful. And I was transitioning at a point in my life where I was taking on more responsibilities professionally. So I wanted to take the opportunity to still be very much involved with YCP, but not be involved as much of the day-to-day operations. So for me, that looked like joining the board of directors, where I could still be really involved, support a new team, but not have the responsibility of leading all of the day-to-day operations of running a chapter. So for me, that's been super fruitful as well. And we have an awesome board of directors in Boston with a lot of amazing folks who are more seasoned professionals as well, excuse me. So getting to know them and build relationship with them has also been a really wonderful gift.
Yeah, that's great, because you almost moved from someone who was being mentored to someone who was mentoring others now.
Yeah.
So what was that shift like? You know, how did you have to kind of start thinking about your role now as a board member, and you're actually here to serve and support the leaders that you're now bringing up, you know, kind of underneath you after you're gaining all this experience and this time as a leader?
So being a board member has actually been a little more challenging than I anticipated. And I say that in the sense of you go from growing a chapter, which is a little bit of your baby, and you have ways that you were traditionally doing something, and then you have a new team comes in and you're challenging, and myself was challenged in this too, navigating different thoughts and perspectives on maybe how to manage a certain event or certain approaches to solving problems. And learning how to not enforce my way of doing things, but allowing space and freedom for the new team to operate, while also providing guidance to keep everyone on the same vision and mission on the trail, has been a really unique challenge, I think, for me, and like a growth point where that's kind of the cycle of how life goes as we grow and we become mentors, is providing frameworks and infrastructure, but then allowing folks freedom to operate in a way that maybe they see fit or is more appropriate for this point in time that maybe was not appropriate when we were running the chapter or just launching the chapter. Right. So that has been but it's been absolutely wonderful too, and so exciting and amazing to get to see the chapter flourish and grow over the years. So I think in Boston we're close to 90 or 100 members, which is amazing, and our current team is crushing it, so I'll give them a shout out as well. They're amazing. We've got a full team of 10 young adults who are just the best and have really exceeded my expectations, so they're
That's
doing great.
Awesome.
Yeah,
doing such a good job. And what would you say to someone who was considering taking this next step to participate, not just as a member of YCP, but now as a volunteer, either in a leadership role or in a board role?
So I would tell someone, give yourself permission to say yes to the Lord. Sometimes we build stories in our head and have these plans and these thoughts and these ideas, but we forget to ask the Lord and invite him into this walk with us. So if you can give yourself that gift of allowing the Lord to be with you, and also like the Lord wants you to choose freely in those spaces, but just giving yourself a little bit of permission to say yes and discern well over this choice. I think sometimes the answer or the ways to find the integration of faith and work are there. We just don't seek them out. Yeah. So finding active ways to really try to seek them out, you will seek and you shall find. It's there. Yeah. So
yeah. I love that. I mean, I think there's such an opportunity. We see increasingly that many of our leaders are putting this on their resumes and on their LinkedIn profiles, and they're proud of what they've learned at YCP. And it's also such a beautiful opportunity for them to also evangelize, right? Because
absolutely,
these are public places where they're now feeling more bold, more confident to step out and say, yes, I am Catholic, and I've developed these skills, this professional skill set that I've honed through this service opportunity at YCP. So it's really cool to see that duality of learning, but also being able to use that as a tool for evangelization.
Absolutely.
So let's continue on that evangelization track a little bit more. So you recently decided to start a LinkedIn newsletter. So tell us a little bit about that. What were you like? What was the start of that? The idea of that? What were you hoping to achieve? Where did that idea start?
So I've always been a writer, and I've just written a lot for myself, really, and I've really enjoyed that over the years. I think it's something that helped me a lot through college And I'm 29 now, and as I reflect back on my 20s, they were so much harder than I thought they were going to be. I remember finishing college and feeling like everyone said the 20s are the best years of your life. And I look back and I'm like, the 20s were some of the hardest years of my life. Like, they were so beautiful, but also not what I expected. So for me, starting this newsletter was really almost like a gift to myself as a public reflection on all the things that I feel like I've been challenged with, whether it be faith, professionally, like personally, romantic relationships, etc. And hopefully providing like a resource and maybe eventually a community for folks who are feeling like they're in this season of life when they feel like they're in a space between, or there's nothing moving in their life, or man, I thought I would have a kid by now, and the husband and the house and all the things, and you're not there yet. And the world is, throwing all these things in your face, especially in such a digital world. And just give you a moment to pause and reflect and be like, what were the gifts in my life today? Like, how did the Lord use this season of my life for so much good? And looking back, I can confidently say that there was so much good, and I am such a better version of myself now because of all those challenges. So I really hope that the newsletter is just something that supports folks going through that season of life and maybe build community around it.
Yeah, I love that. What have been some of the reactions? I mean, I know people are commenting and probably interacting with you, maybe sending you messages. What are the reactions like to what you're writing?
Yeah, that's a great question. So this is definitely a newer endeavor, but overall, I think folks are really positive. I get a lot of like text messages and some of my really awesome, amazing friends who were like, wow, thank you for sharing that. Or, oh my goodness, I also went through that experience. Yeah, that was like harder than I thought it was going to be. Or my 20s might look glamorous on my Instagram account, but they're really not. And, things like that. Or I hear from also a lot of single women. And I think that's been something that I've tried to grow in my single season, and not feeling like you're losing hope and all those things, and finding ways to like live out more meaningfully and use this season to prepare for your vocation rather than feeling like you're in despair. So that's kind of the general overview, I would say.
It's almost like you're giving people permission to just acknowledge that maybe their expectations weren't quite aligned with the reality, right? Or that it's just okay to say like, hey, this is just not like a great moment.
Yeah.
But I have hope, right? Because we are people of hope. And I think it sounds like that's a lot of what you're writing about is hope.
Mm-hmm.
And people need that now because there's so many things that aren't really hopeful. There's a lot of dark things, right?
Yeah.
And I think that's really a lot of what drove Jennifer, our founder, to start YCP is how do we help more young people live a life of zeal for our faith, right? A life of hope for the future, a life of trust in our Lord, because it brings so much fruitfulness and so much beauty into our lives and joy, right? Because we can have joy even in the down times. If we choose it. Right?
Yeah.
It sounds like those are some of the things that people are getting from your newsletter.
And the Lord wants good things for your life. You really have to believe that. And sometimes we forget that the Lord created you to be a light in this world. So also I think it can be easy to feel overwhelmed by all the choices you have to make in your 20s. Oh my goodness, am I going to do this career path? Am I going to live in this city, etc.?
Yeah.
And most decisions are reversible in some form, and your life will look totally different 2 or 3 or 5 years from now than it will today. And giving yourself permission to also maybe try something different. You don't have to go on this one path that you think everyone around you thinks you have to go.
Right.
So I think there's a lot of just, being like settling the restlessness that you have in your heart with the Lord, and then allowing him to breathe into your life a little more and give you space to make decisions freely.
Yeah, I've been thinking a lot about naturalness. How do we become fully who God calls us to be? Our authentic self, the genuine person that God knows we are, or knows who we are, but also who we can become if we trust in Him. But just this kind of naturalness, and I see that in you. Like you've really learned about yourself, and you're learning how you can navigate in the world and influence others in positive ways. That includes evangelizing and talking about your faith, but you've found a way that's natural for you to do that, right? Through the newsletter, through these other ways at work that you do that. Yeah. So what would you say to people who are maybe not at that point yet, and they're like, okay, I know my faith is important to me, but I kind of don't know where to start. And I'm seeing how other people are doing it, but I don't want to fake it, right? I don't want to try and do it the way someone else has done it. How do I find the way that God is calling me to share my faith? God is calling me to be bolder in my faith. What advice or guidance would you offer?
So first off, I would say ask him what he's
It's a
calling.
good starting place, yeah.
I would say ask the Lord what he's calling you, to do in that area of your life. And then the second thing I would say is just start small and do something authentic for yourself. Like, you will know if what you are doing feels authentic to you. So, like, for example, maybe it's just every day you start with like a prayer and you just say like, thank you, Lord, for this day. Or you start thanking God for just like small things in your life. Or maybe it's nothing outward, but it's affecting how your interior appearance. So I know for me, like when I first started going to a rosary group, I had never prayed the rosary, and it was super uncomfortable. So there were times where I would be like, I don't know, like if I'm like cut out for this, so to speak, right? And then you go and you do it a few more times, and then you build community and friendship, and you start having these conversations. And like now for me, the rosary has become something that's super important in my life. And I love listening to Mark Wahlberg, on Hallow, pray the rosary with his Boston accent, because that feels like home to me.
Yeah, that's right.
So like, it doesn't always have to be an outward expression, especially when you start, and you don't have to go and post on LinkedIn about your faith or all those things if you're not comfortable doing those things. So everyone's journey looks unique. And I would just, again, give yourself permission to know that you don't have to have the same faith life as someone else. And even in a relationship, give yourself permission to know that your faith could look different than your boyfriend, fiance, husband, wife, etc. And that's okay. You're two separate people and you're coming together as one, and you will discover what your prayer life or your faith life looks like at that point in time, but you don't need to have it figured out right now.
Yeah. Yeah. And all of that through prayer.
Yeah.
Right. And I also just think of the people you're surrounding yourself with, and even talking to them about it. Maybe even if you have close friends, asking them like, where do you think I could step into something more? Where could I be a little bolder? Where can, I don't know. Sometimes just other people see things in a different light, even about us. Obviously, they see us in a different way than we see ourselves sometimes, and that can be helpful.
Absolutely.
Relying on friends and mentors, and other people that love us and want us to become who God is really calling us to be. But I'd love to know a little bit more. Just we're talking about faith here, and a little bit of your faith journey in your 20s. But to step back a little bit, has your faith always been important to you? What did that journey look like? Kind of everything before your 20s.
Yeah, great question. So I grew up in a very culturally Catholic house. I would say we were Christmas and Easter Catholics. We went to CCD. We received all of our sacraments, reconciliation, First Communion. I was confirmed in the church. I taught a little bit of CCD while I was in high school for some elementary aged kids. And then when I went to college, we had a really strong Newman Center at Boston University. And again, to bring in the theme of community, I started meeting some other folks who were much more enriched, I think, in their faith. And I started to get really curious. So for me, I was like, I had never prayed a rosary until I went to college. I was like, what's a rosary? So I like these little things that just kind of started to open up in my life. And we had focused missionaries on campus and things like that ended up being great mentors and people that I could rely on and have conversation with, and then just grow in that community. So for me, it looked like a lot of growth through college. And then when I went to grad school, I think I was struggling with it again a little bit because I didn't have a strong community at the time. It was very heavy on school, and a lot of my Catholic friends weren't like living near me anymore. And then it wasn't until I had finished graduate school and then started coming back to Mass more regularly, and then found the YCP community, that I feel like my faith is stronger than ever now.
Yeah. Well, I love that because there's some intentionality to it, but also looking back, there was a lot of things that you probably weren't very intentional about. They were things that you were open to, things that maybe happened to you, but you were open to them, right? So I love that. So thank you for sharing a little bit about your journey, because people sometimes come to YCP and they've shared with me like, I thought like everyone here is already really strong in their faith, right? And the reality is that everyone has journeyed to get where they are, that they're some even willing to go. Like me, I wasn't even willing to go to YCP when I first started 11 years or 12 years ago now. But then I went once and I was hooked, right?
Yeah.
And that really was a catalyst for me coming back alive in my faith after having been raised Catholic and mostly fallen away in college. And so people really do come to this community at all different stages of their faith. And so it's important that people know that this isn't a community for people who have figured out their faith or something like that, because that's not even really possible, right? We should keep growing. We should keep challenging and encouraging each other in our faith. We have people that come to YCP and, end up converting or reverting to the faith, right? And then we have people who have been daily communicants for many, many years and have been really strong in their faith. And they're encouraging others, and they're finding ways to apply their faith to their work now, right? Some come just to understand what that linkage is with their work. So
no, that's so true.
Yeah, it's good to see where we all come from.
Absolutely.
Before this.
And truly, we never arrive on this side of heaven. So we are always continuing to grow and learn and strive in our faith. And one of my favorite things to do is to invite someone to a YCP event who's on the fence about YCP. I'm like, why don't you just come to an event? Just love that open invitation. I think that's how I always frame it. I mean, even sometimes with my siblings who are non-practicing, I'm always just open invitation, come to Mass, and it's just this. It's not a condemnation, but it's just an invitation to join us at any time. And no matter if you are practicing, if you're not practicing, if you're mad at the church, if you're in love with the church, come to a YCP event. It's just, I think it'll change your heart.
And it's just fun.
It's just fun. Yeah, it's fun too. You will meet a lot of amazing people and just have a really good time overall. So 10 out of 10 win. So,
I love that.
Yeah.
So we call this refiner's fire, right? So how do you think God is refining you through YCP, through your work these days?
Oh man, that's a loaded question. God is refining me every single day. No, truly, I think I'm challenged every single day in the work that I do. And it's only by the grace of God that I feel I am able to learn and grow and hopefully be able to do something that builds meaningful impact in his kingdom. So, I think for me, it's patience. It's it's discipline some days, or it's being more grateful some days, and it's being able to remind myself to receive the sacraments more. And so I think God is working through all these little ways, and then just putting things that are on your heart and sharing them with the Lord. So if the Lord has something that he's put on your heart, don't shut it down. Give yourself that ability to know that he will refine and shape and mold you in a way that will prepare you for that new experience. It might not be tomorrow, but it might be years from now or 2 months from now, et cetera. So that's what I would say.
Yeah, I love that. Yeah, I think he's been calling me to be more bold and more courageous in my work. And so I'm trying to take steps that when I feel nudges, and I normally would pull back on something, to just say, all right, Lord, if this is, if I feel like I'm in the season of boldness and kind of stepping out with more trust in what he's asking of me. And so I'm trying to learn to be more attentive of that. But I think just an openness and asking our Lord as well, where do you want me to go? Yeah. Where do you want me to grow? And I'll try and listen, Lord. I'll do my best. Yeah. It would be helpful if you could make it really obvious for me.
Please just drop a note right here.
Yep. I need it right here in front of me so I don't have to guess and wonder anymore.
Yeah,
right.
Exactly. I love that. Bold and courageous YCP. I'm excited, Peter.
I'm trying to. Big things in store.
Promise.
Big things.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I mean, we're called to be zealous, and I want more of that zeal and that boldness. And if we are truly convicted in our faith, then how can we not be? How can we not want to reach as many souls as possible and give them the knowledge and the experience of the kind of love that I have, the kind of relationship I have with the Lord. And so bringing that message to as many people as possible here through YCP.
Amen. I love
So,
that.
Yeah, there's a lot to be hopeful for. So as we kind of move towards wrapping up here, what would you leave us with, words of encouragement for everyone who's been joining us in this journey today?
So I would say that the Lord shows up every single day in your life, but sometimes we don't see it because we're not looking for it.
Yeah.
So for anyone who feels like the Lord is not showing up in their life, who's feeling discouraged or overwhelmed or feeling like they don't have community or the thing that they prayed for has not yet happened, it's not that the Lord doesn't see you. It's often that he's just working in different ways. So I would also encourage you to look for the ways the Lord is showing up in your life, have gratitude for that, and then just continue to build a relationship with him and invite people into that relationship too. So the Lord wants you to be in relationship with people and friends and romantically and otherwise. So I would just, again, open your heart, be receptive to that, and find good community by coming to a YCP event.
Yeah. And if you haven't been to YCP before, you can hit our website, youngcatholicprofessionals.org, and check out, we've got all our chapters there, 43 cities across the country. So it's highly likely we have a chapter near you. Boston, you can go to ycpboston.org or find your way there from our national website. Chapters have at least monthly events, everything from happy hours and executive speaker series to St. Joseph Saturdays, which are our retreats focused on St. Joseph the Worker, panel discussions on virtue, and a host of other member-exclusive opportunities, including other meetups and workshops, and mentoring is a major component of our membership experience, connections to Catholic executives who have walked before you and want to walk with you. So check out a chapter near you. Hope you'll come and participate. And also you mentioned our conference. So very soon we'll be announcing the dates for our 2026 conference, which will be in Dallas again in the spring of 2026. So stay tuned for more to come on that, and hope you keep working in witness for Christ. So Rebecca, thank you so much for coming. I'm glad this work trip worked out and we could film this episode and you could come hang out here at the office for a little while. Thanks so much for your leadership and for sharing with us today.
Thank you, Peter. This has been great. So
we'll see you guys soon.